Okay, so in the last video, we focused here on this screen with using our slope formula, finding the slope of the line. That in general gives us an idea what type of line we're looking at, right? Is the slope positive? Is it negative? Is it zero? Is it undefined? And so now we want to look at slopes a bit more specifically with a graph. So on your screen, it says that A is a -1, -3, B is 3, -5. Could I take those two ordered pairs, put them in my slope formula, find my slope like we just did? Absolutely. But we are trying to work with these linear functions, and we're going to be working with their graphs. So it is important to look at, well, how can we use the graph in order to find our slope? Okay, so they've given me 2 points. I'm going to put those 2 points on my graph. Sometimes they'll give you the points on the graph to start, and sometimes they'll have you put them on. It just sort of depends. So I'm going to go on here, -1 on the X, -3 on the Y. There's my point. +3 on the X, -5 on the Y. There's my point. And then we are going to put the line on here, because if you get this already put on there for you, that line's going to be on there already. Okay, let me just clean it up a little bit. There we go. And if we want to put that arrowheads, right, we can put our arrowheads. Okay, so sometimes it'll come looking like this. Sometimes you're putting the points on like I just did. But ultimately, how do I use the graph in order to find my slope? So remember the phrase that was also used for slope was rise over run, right? And like a fraction, okay? That's what we want to use. So what we're going to do is you're going to start at the point that you hit first when you go left to right. So whether it's up, down, doesn't matter. I'm going to start at the first point when I go across my graph from left to right. And what I'm going to do is I'm first going to start by counting up or down till I'm at the same spot as the other point. I'm going to count my rise. So in this case, I have to count down until I'm on sort of the same line or level as my other point. So I'm starting here. I'm just going to count my jumps. So 1 jump, 2 jumps, and I'm now at the same level that this is. Because I went down, we're going to say this is a -2. If I count up, then that means it would be positive. Now we're going to count the run. So now I'm going to count from here, and in this case, I'm going to count to the right. And because you're doing this from the point on the left, you should always be counting to the right. We're going to count how many jumps it takes now to hit the other point. So from here, 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3, and 4. So that's a +4. So when I make my fraction rise over run, -2 over 4. And we always want to simplify, right? So both of these can divide by 2. And so if we do that, our slope is a -1 over 2. Okay, so that's how we can get our slope from a graph. So let's take a look at another one. -2, -4, and -2, +3. So again, first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go onto my graph and I'm going to graph these points. So -2, -4, -2, +3. And so my line is going to look like this. Okay. And so that means, stick my arrowheads, I'm looking at a perfectly vertical line. So you can think back to those 4 types of slope and, hey, what type of slope does a vertical line use? Or if you forget, we can still use our counting method. So normally I said you want to use the point that's to the left. Well, these are at the same level. So I'm just going to start at one of them. So considering this was the ordered pair I graphed first, I'm going to start here. And I'm just going to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I went 7 spaces, right? Notice I don't have to go to the right. So it was 7 spaces up and 0 spaces to the right. Well, what happens when 0 is on the bottom? When 0 is on the bottom, we need to say that this is undefined. If you simply remember that a vertical line has an undefined slope, this is one you wouldn't even have to count. You would just be like, hey, it's a vertical line. Let me write undefined and I can move on. And so let's look at one more with a graph. So we have a -1, +2, and a +3, +4. So let me get my points. So a -1, +2 is here. A +3 on the X, +4 on the Y is here. We're going to get our line through here, and I can clean this up a little bit. There we go. That looks better. And here's my arrowheads, okay? And so now, going from left to right, here's my point on the left, right? So if you want to pause and count this yourself, go ahead and pause and count. And so I'm going to start here. This case, I have to count up. So 1, 2 spots up. Then I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 spots over. So rise over run. These can divide, by 2. And so I get a slope of a +1/2. Okay. What's going to happen is next week we're going to put all of this together. How do we put those equations and tables from the first lesson with our slope of this lesson, and how do we sort of put that all together with our linear functions and our lines and our graphs?